with that, let's take a look at what we've added over the last few releases in the area of geometry. So the first thing that we did is a couple of changes we've made to the profile intersection point tool. The first change that we made was in 2022 R1, where we enhanced the tool to allow the use of a selection set. So if you've ever had multiple crossing points or multiple profile intersection points, they had to be done one at a time, right? So, you know, if you had 3 or 4, that was one thing, but if you had 30 or 40, it could be a fairly time-consuming process. So now, having the use of a selection set allows multiple points to be placed at one, which is which is obviously much more efficient. So let's take a look at how this actually works. So, Dan, we got a video here.
Yeah, the video's playing. Are you not seeing it?
I am not seeing it. I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. Now I got it here. Okay. So basically what this does here is, you can see here I've got 3 elements that cross. I think one's a conduit, one's a baseline, one's a pipe. And then what you can do is you can do those one at a time, which is kind of the way that it worked in the past. But now you can actually put them all into a selection set. When you identify the selection set, you can put all 3 points in there at the same time. And so that's, again, this is kind of the advantage here, and it'll recognize if there's a selection set and place those points in there. Correctly. Now you can create the selection set manually, as we did on the first go round, or if you've really got a long project, let's say for example you had a 10-mile project and you may have 300 or 400 of these crossing points, then what you'd want to do obviously is use a graphical filter. And so what we've done here is we actually used a graphical filter to create the selection set for us. The graphical filter can look at certain features or whatever the case may be, and then that just really makes it very, very efficient to use a selection set in this area. So that was something that we did in 2022 R1. Another thing that we did in 2022 R1 was we added the ability to do LandXML scripting. And so basically what we did is we just added some commands that you can use via a batch process to export your geometry and export your terrains out to LandXML files. And again, let's take, for example, let's say you had to do, like in some markets, you may have to do deliveries every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks or things like that, submittals. If you have to go out into all your files and go re-export all your geometry, that can be a very painful process. So with the use of these key-ins and a batch script, you can now make it much more efficient. So let's just take a look at how this works. So here I've got this is actually a blank file, and I've got some geometry referenced in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the batch process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to list all my files that have geometry in them. In this case, it's a fairly simple or sample of 4 files. And then I'm going to select a batch file that I want to run against those files, if you've ever used this. Now I'm going to take a look real quick. This is what the batch file looks like, and it's really 2 things that you do. The first thing I'm doing is I'm creating a selection set with this command here. I'm using a geometry filter, a graphical filter, to find all of my secondary alignments. And then I'm going to use this export command to generate the LandXML file. And so we just put this into a batch process, and then we go and let it run. So what it's going to do is it's going to go into each file. It's going to look for, try to create a selection set of the geometry elements, and then it's going to export them out. So once we ready to go, we just say, hey, go ahead and run this, and we click process. And here I'm just going through 4 files to make it fairly simple. But you could go through 400 if you wanted to, or 40, whatever the case may be. So it's just going to each file, creating a selection set, exporting it to LandXML. Go to the next file, create a selection set, export it to LandXML, so on and so forth until it gets done. So you could kick this off, go to lunch, come back, and you can see all of your XML files have been created. Now, we did something very similar for terrains as well. It's the same process, and we'll just show it here. Here I've got a file that's got one terrain in it, but I want to go do multiple ones. So I'm going to go to a different directory here, and I've got 3 different files. And again, we're just doing a sample here to show you how this works. I've got a batch file here that I'm going to use called terrain batch. And again, it does the exact same thing. It's got a selection set that's set up. You can do microstation commands. You can do like for example, power select or all if you want to select everything, or you can create a selection set by graphical filters. However you choose to create the selection set, you can then export them out to a LandXML file. And this is all documented in the help. It'll give you some samples of the batch processing. Once again, we just fill out the files. We say we want to go process. It's going to do the same thing as it did with geometry. It's going to open the file, create a selection set, export it to LandXML, so on and so forth. And then when we're done, you'll be able to go out and look in your directory, and you will see your XML files that are out there. So again, it's just something to make, if you've got this type of process, it can be a little tedious. It can help you out and make it much more efficient. Okay, what else have we done under geometry? Under 2022 R2, we did something that users have been asking for quite a while, and that is we have taken the more advanced horizontal regression tools that were previously available only in OpenRail, and now we have moved them back to OpenRoads. This kind of goes back to our legacy products. If you go back to our legacy products, Geopack, En-ROADS, etc., they had very advanced regression tools. But when we went to ORD, those tools were only available in OpenRail, and you had some simple best fit tools in OpenRoads. And so our users had been asking for a long time, hey, can you move those more advanced regression tools back to OpenRoads? And we've done that. And again, it prevents you having to purchase a more expensive product just to use those tools. So that's a pretty big thing we did in 2022 R2. Something else that we did in 2022 R2 under geometry is we added a new points filter tool that allows for the filtering of geometry and survey points. Now, in older versions, we had the ability to filter survey points, but we really didn't have a way to filter geometry points, and we certainly didn't have a way to filter them at the same time. And so this new tool is kind of a one-stop shop for filtering your survey and geometry points and obtaining information from them. So let's take a look at how this works here. So I've got a file here it's a survey file, but I have added some geometry points inside of this file for just for some demonstration purposes. So under my point pull down, I'm going to select the points filter. Now this will read your information on the fly from both the file that you're in as well as any reference files that are displaying. So you can see here it has read all of my points. If you look on the far right under type, you'll see that we've got some survey points, as well as we've got some geometry points, and they're all listed right there. Now let's go take a look at some things you can do. You can refresh it at any time. You can include or exclude references. You can show me the 2D points or show me just 3D points. So you've got these nice little toggles that just kind of let you control what's displayed. You can sort on the feature name. For example, here I can say look at anything with CB asterisk. Or the point name. I'm sorry. You can also filter on the feature name in this case, I'm putting in some characters here. We can of course clear the features. We can hide survey points and hide geometry points. Again, just with a toggle, you can say show me only geometry points in the dialog, or you can say show me only survey points in the dialog. Over on the right, you've got a few icons over there that are pretty nice. You can create a selection set from whatever you've got selected in the dialog. It'll create a graphical selection set for you. You can inverse between the selection. So here I've got 2 points selected. I'm doing a quick inverse, and you can see the results. If I add more points, I can do inverse again, and it'll inverse between those points as well. You can get station and offset information. You can save the information there to a file that you've got in the in the text window there as well. Along the bottom there, you've the information, for example, there, the inverse information, you can save that out to a file. You've got some various dialogues. You can clear it, as you can see there. You can also hide your locators. You can show X, Y, or northeast. Just with the click of a button, it'll kind of changes your display there. And then of course your units, you can just change your units on the fly right there in the dialog, as well as your bearing display and your whether you're using degrees, minutes, seconds, or whatever the case may be. So a nice little dialog here just kind of helps you go filter your point. One more quick thing that you can do is you've got window fit and window center options. So basically what it'll do is it'll fit to whatever whatever you select in the table. It'll automatically take you to that point location in the DGN file. You've also got the ability, if you don't want to fit it, you can also kind of zoom out like I'm doing here, get your window extents the way you want them, and then you can just use window center, and then that'll kind of give you, sometimes that's a little bit easier to visualize as you move along. So again, it's just moving to that whatever I select in the table. So a nice little points filter dialog, we introduced that in 2022 R2. Another thing that we did in 2022 R2 release is we made some changes to the geometry editor. We added some new functionality along in the area of checking integrity. Really did two things here. The first thing we did is we added the ability to graphically flag any issues that you may have, and we also added the ability to access the integrity report directly from the dialog. So what's the value of this? Well, we always had a check integrity report that you could run on an alignment, but we really didn't have any way to flag the error graphically. And so this new option now allows you to load it into Geometry Editor, have it graphically flag it, and it just makes it a lot easier to locate any problems. So I've got a real simple example here, just a real simple alignment. I'm going to start the Geometry Editor just to kind of show you how this works. And so we'll just select this little simple alignment here, and you'll notice that little orange triangle there. That's the graphical flag. And so if you just turn on check integrity, it'll check the integrity of your alignment, and it'll automatically flag it. And again, it's just transient graphics. You can turn it on and off by just going over there and clicking on that icon. But as you can see, it makes it much easier if you do have a problem just to flag it. It'll show you exactly where that problem is. You'll also see down along the bottom of the dialog, we made it easier to, if you do have a problem and you want to see the report, you can actually just kick off the report directly from the dialog. You can see there's the angular difference there. We've also got a color-coded report that we deliver as well. Again, just trying to make it easier for users to see any potential issues that they might have. Okay, anything else under geometry? Under geometry editor, one more thing that we did is we added the ability to save to an XML file from the geometry editor. The real pain or problem here is we really had no way in previous versions to save the output. If you made any modifications or anything in geometry editor, you didn't have any way to save to an XML. Now we've added that, and then you can take that output and go load it into other dialogues such as Geometry Builder if the need is there. Okay, under Geometry Builder, also in 2022 R2, we added some new compass rule adjustments. In previous versions, the real pain here was that we only had two options, one which was no line and the other was force close. But to be honest with you, neither one of those is what users really wanted. What they really wanted was the standard compass rule adjustments that distribute the closure across the geometry, and so those have been added in 2022 R2. Let's see, what else? Civil cell geometry. We added the ability in 2022 R2 to propagate design standards into a civil cell. So what happened basically in previous versions, let's say you had, for example, a curb return and you had a design standard assigned to that piece of geometry. Well, if you built a civil cell using that geometry, the design standard would not propagate or carry through to the civil cell. That is no longer true beginning in 2022 R2. The design standard carries completely through the civil cell and will notify users appropriately. So let's just take a quick look at how this works. You can see here a fairly simple project. I'm going to go just place a T intersection, something very simple here. We'll identify the alignment, we'll identify the edge of pavement that we want to place that civil cell on. Now, if I zoom in here to the curb return and actually look at the properties for that curb return, you'll notice that it does have a design standard assigned to it. So it actually it propagated again through the civil cell. So now, even though this is a civil cell, if I do make a change, so let's say let's change this from a 40 to a 20, you can see that it's actually checking your design standards. It's going to give you any error messages or warning messages that that you're not meeting that whatever that appropriate design standard would be. So again, this was something that didn't happen prior to 2022 R2, but now it works appropriately as it should. Another thing that we've added in the area of geometry and this one is in the 2023 release is we've added the ability to perform transformation based upon some additional methodologies, Helmert, affine, conformal, projective, and rigid. We did support least squares previously. The big thing here is we now support all of the standard transformation methods used across the industry. There's a couple ways to show this. I could show it under transform elements or just transform using point pairs. I'm just going to do the transform using point pairs here. Just to kind of show you this real quickly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select that little shape over on the left, which is the elements that I want to, or the element that I want to transform. And then I'm going to select these points over here that I want to transform to. And once we get that filled in, you'll see under the transform methods, I can choose the method that I want to use. And if we hit the drop down, you can see the affine, the Helmert, the conform, the projective, the rigid, all of the different standard methodologies. So for what we're doing here, I'll just select the rigid, and we'll say OK, and we'll select that, and we'll accept that. And you can see when we do, it transforms the graphics over based on that new transform method. Alrighty, let's see, do we have anything else? Yeah, one more profile intersection point. I mentioned earlier that we did some new stuff with profile intersection point in, I believe it was 2022 R1, where you could use a selection set. We've also added the ability now to handle multiple intersections along the same element. So in previous versions, you kind of had to do this one at a time. We just added a very simple toggle that will automatically pick up all the intersection points to be processed at once. So let's take a look at the video, and I think it'll show you, kind of make it clear. So you can see here I've got two alignments. The alignment that's in gray is what I'm actually looking at there in the profile. And then I've got this kind of red alignment, or this red piece of geometry that cuts through the gray one, and it hits it at 3 different locations. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, and I want to do a profile intersection points. Now, if I leave the toggle off, it works the way that it always has. And the way it always has is that you only get the intersection point closest to your cursor. So notice my cursor is closest to that middle point. So now you get this little red box that kind of shows you which point you're going to get. If I move my cursor over to the far right, or I move my cursor to the far left, I'm going to get the points closest. So if you want them one at a time, you can still get them that way. But if you turn on the toggle, you will get all 3 in this particular scenario. So it's just saying, hey, find them all and put them on there for me. So, nice little simple toggle, but obviously it makes the use of the tool much more efficient.